Hi, this is Dr. Gotham Gulati with Well Played. I like to think of Well Played as not just a business that happens to have a mission, as most companies do, but rather it's a mission that happens to be good business. And it actually stemmed from a personal challenge that I'd experienced in terms of the idea for Well Played. And of course, it's evolved over time. But really, as someone who's a physician and I've spent my career really building out companies and innovation divisions for different companies, I experienced a real personal challenge in 2000, really from 2014 to 2017. My dad had aggressive form of Alzheimer's, and I was his primary caretaker. And quite frankly, in 2017, there were certain things that really came to a home when a lot of critical things were happening in terms of his progression and worsening and decline. And it's hard to really separate this element of physician and patient and so forth, and what's the science and what's the personal need and so forth. And I really struggled with that aspect. And, as someone who's a physician, we tend to want to do interventions and treatments and prescribe as much as possible. But pills and products and potions and whatever it may be can only take you so far. And I was really struggling with his rapid decline. And I felt like, the more we intervened and felt like we were doing something, we were treating side effects of the side effects with other treatments and other medications that had additional side effects. Um, and so, I turned to actually a cousin in law who was experiencing something similar. And he told me several stories and how he had managed his father in law and his Alzheimer's. And he said a simple statement. He told me a story about the importance of living in their reality. And oftentimes we bring people into our own reality as physicians and say, listen, this is how we're going to treat. But he said, for Alzheimer's patients, you need to step into their reality. And that ultimately is how you can relate to them and make them heal. And that simple story that he shared with me in his personal experience changed everything for my management and treatment with my dad as a caregiver. And, there are certain things, for example, with Alzheimer's patients, we say sundowning or they're agitated, and we treat based on that. So rather, I wanted to find out the root. What was the issue? And once we started living in my dad's reality, his reality, we were able to understand some of the things that he was trying to communicate with us and actually remove almost 90% of his medications. So the point is, you know, listening to the struggles and stories of other people transformed the way I thought and the way I behaved and the way I managed my father in terms of his care. And it got me thinking about a bunch of the other patients and people that I know, that if that simple story was something that I could relate to, are there other people that could relate to similar things in their lives? And so it got me thinking about this element of why don't we share more stories of our struggles in healthcare? And are there ways that we can essentially create a medium that allows people to want to share it, not as a form of weakness, but as a form of connectivity? And I started as somebody who's been in the world of innovation. You start looking at trends and you look at the behaviors of Gen Z and millennial folks, and they're really about their promotion of their health and their well being and their mindfulness. And that's a significant shift from the baby boomers and the Gen Xers from before. Yet I looked at all of the media that we had available, whether it be in digital media or traditional, and none of it was really addressing that. Although we're starting to see a lot more awareness of taking control of our own health. And so I noticed that there's this big gap in terms of the content in the marketplace that we could essentially fit in looking at healthcare, not necessarily just in terms of science and medicine and how do we relate to the younger generation, but also in terms of health at the intersection of society and culture. And how can we essentially create impact there? And was any media organization essentially addressing that and looking at the incumbents like WebMD and Discovery Channel and so forth? I mean, these weren't really addressing those core needs in a very what I call edutaining way that captures both the entertainment factor but also gives the educational component that we need to effectively create healthy behavior change. And so that's where I think well played could essentially fit in. I think there's multiple different ways that we can approach it. I'm not naive in thinking that there aren't others looking at the space as well. There's companies like the Able Channel and a couple of others looking at how to essentially create content in more of a distributed way. And establish a new platform for this next generation of voice that they can connect to and relate to. So I think this is sort of a time in our marketplace in a time sort of in the world where the shift needs to happen in terms of media. I, as a physician, have a creative edge. I've got tons of experience in terms of building out content. I also understand the healthcare world. I understand how to build experiences. And I do to some degree understand media, but that's where I think the help of human can come in. I think this combination of figuring out how to essentially solve for this. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers, and this is kind of where we need some help. Um, but yeah, so that's what we're looking to do. Where can human help serve? Where can we look for assistance and your support? I'm tending to look at three primary areas that we need support. One is, of course, content. We want to produce the best content with integrity. That's not low production quality, but more high production quality, because that's where we feel like the big network players are going to want to essentially either license or acquire that type of content. And that's harder to produce. And I think if we can establish ourselves as the high production quality content with good integrity, that sort of builds a moat around the types of services and content that we're producing, as opposed to the run of the mill, quick interview podcasts or anchor like type of recordings or clubhouse type of recordings. Like, we're going for the higher production element and steering away from that element. The second area that I think we could certainly use assistance is talent. Who should we be speaking to? Who can we bring into the fold? Um, who do we think can help us move this vision forward? We already have sort of a stellar team. We've got, Pamela Rothenberg as an executive producer and a senior producer for Superhumans, looking at having other shows along with her. But can we bring in good talent to help us support us and execute on this vision, both in the audio as well as the video and live experiences play? And the third piece is really the network play. And I think this is really where we can establish and make a big moat and a difference here. It's kind of what I read this article recently calling it WMD, Weapons of Mass Distribution. And can we establish the key partnerships with the big players in the space, such as Spotify, Apple, Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, etc., that gives us the distribution and the access that we need to essentially get our content out there. Because I don't want to fool ourselves, without that proper distribution, um, it's hard to compete in the content world. And so, could we together, based on our relationships and your relationships in media and ours in health, combined, can we essentially establish a good foothold in the distribution space so that whatever content we do produce gets us to the place that we need to get to from a strategic standpoint? So we've given this a lot of thought. This is, we like to think of Well Played as story as a form of medicine, creating educational and edutainment type of content that's both educational and entertaining, but really adjusting the next generation audience in the forms that they consume various forms of content. And of course, there's multiple forms of revenue that we can play with here, from not just subscription and membership based, but also advertising, affiliate marketing. There's e-commerce plays. We're looking at sort of a house of brand experiences around these different content plays. So really, I think we're open to exploring. Of course, we have a vision and a path forward, but we're also open to adjusting as necessary based on what the markets are telling us and how we can best serve our audience. So I'll stop there. Plenty of material that we can share with you. Of course, we're not starting from scratch. We actually have a product in the marketplace, which is being considered for an award, a Webby Award at the moment. So hopefully we're going to start seeding ourselves and making a name for ourselves in terms of high production quality for healthcare content. So I hope to be able to work with you guys. Thank you. Thanks for consideration.